Again, what are different types of figurative language? There's multiple of them. Who can give me one? Figurative language. Give me one type of figurative language. What? We're not on a page yet. What? Nope. Nope. That's a genre. Simile. Thank you, Kamani. Hyperbole. What else we got? Not an antonym. That is a grammatical thing. A metaphor. We have a simile, a metaphor, a hyperbole. There's a couple more. Nope. We have a simile, a metaphor. An onomatopoeia is a figurative language, but not one we're looking at. We have, what is it when you give an animal human-like qualities? Nope. What is it? What type of figurative language is it when you give an animal human qualities? Nope. Personification. I didn't hear you. You weren't speaking loud enough if you said it. All right. When I say Sally sent seashells down a seashore, what type of figurative language is that? Rhyming. Not rhyming. Alliteration. Alliteration. If you think of alliteration, it means all. Alliter means A-L-L. All the consonant sounds at the beginning or nearby are the same. Alliteration. Then we have our sensory language. Our sensory languages is like using the five senses, like I can see or smell the fresh cut grass. Those are words that help you to sense what's happening in the story or in the sentence. So those are our figurative languages. I know you did. That's why I was asking you. All right, open up your books to page 323. 323. We're in our reading books at page 323, please. What we doing, Zamir? We're in our reading books at page 323. Whoever's knocking on your desk, please stop. 323. There you go. Let me zoom out. All right, we are going to reread paragraph 5 in the text to identify examples of figurative language. We're going to, here's the question that you guys are going to have to answer. It says, how do the authors use figurative language in paragraph 5 and explain? So let's read paragraph 5 again. In their early days, the Beatles performed for hours and hours in hundreds and hundreds of shows around England and Germany. It was exhausting and paid next to nothing. Anxious to have a record on their own, of their very own, the Beatles were afraid the band was going nowhere. They used silliness to help keep their spirits up. John would shout, "Where are we going, lads?" So, how do the authors use figurative language in paragraph 5?
Can I get my paper out?
Sure. How do they use figurative language? Oh, there's one that we didn't, I forgot to, what's an idiom?
Oh, I remember going over this.
What's an idiom? No, that's a synonyms? Synonyms. An
Idiom.
idiom means what? Over exaggeration. Or to say something like,
We have simile, metaphor, personification, alliteration, sensory language,
Yep.
hyperbole.
Yep. You should have idiom on there somewhere. An idiom is a phrase that means something different from what the individual words say. So if I say, the day seems like 100 hours long. Am I really saying that is 100 hours long? No. Yes, it is hours long, but it's not 100. I was exaggerating a little bit, but I also was looking at, hey Miranda, I was also saying something, it's factual, but it's also different from what the individual words say, because the day is only really 24 hours long, but I said it's 100 hours long, which is not true. So, thinking of idioms, can you find me or tell me how the author uses figurative language in paragraph 5 and explain? All right, what you got, Gabby?
Does it have to be with time?
No, it doesn't have to be with time, but that could be an answer.
In the early days, the Beatles performed for hours and hours and hundreds of shows.
Jayana, sit up, baby. Hundreds and hundreds of shows. So that would be an example of an idiom, because that is, they could have done hundreds and hundreds, but they probably did hundreds and hundreds, but and just is showing you that they did a lot of shows. All right, what else?
We can use sensory. I don't know if this is correct, but you can use sensory language when it says John would shout, because that's appealing to the
Okay.
devices.
All right, John shouting. That's a sensory language right there. What else?
Metaphor is paid next to nothing. Would that be a metaphor?
That would not be a metaphor. Anxious. They were anxious to have a record of their own. The Beatles were afraid the band was going nowhere. Were they actually going nowhere? No, they were actually going places and playing shows and stuff. So they were actually going somewhere.
That's a metaphor?
That is an idiom. An idiom meaning going nowhere means the band was not working towards achieving their goal of making a record. They were just at a standstill. All right, let's go to page 330, please. We're going to reread paragraph 26. Still looking at figurative language and the author's use to describe the Beatlemania during the 1964 tour.
Did you say 26?
30. Well, yeah, we're reading paragraph 26.
Oh.
The Beatlemania roller coaster reached dizzying heights during the 1964 tour. Fans screamed in the Hollywood Bowl, an outdoor stage under the stars. In Denver's Red Rock Amphitheater, the music echoing off cliffs of red and orange. In Philadelphia's Convention Hall, in a city filled with history, at the Indiana State Fair, amid the sounds and smells of farm animals. And in the 19th in 19 more cities from San Francisco to New York. It says, what figurative language do authors use to describe the Beatlemania during 1964?
In cities filled with history.
Nope. It said, what figurative language do the authors use to describe Beatlemania of 1964 tour? What? No.
The Beatlemania roller coaster reached
The Beatle, yes. It says they referred to the success of the band as a Beatlemania roller coaster. It has its ups and downs. Sometimes they're up really high, they're making a lot of money, and then they go down and they don't have as many fans, and they go back up again. All right, that's giving you a visualization. All right, then what descriptive language helps you to visualize the place the Beatles played during their concerts? What descriptive language? Descriptive, describe. Descriptive language do they use to help you visualize the place the Beatles played during their concert?
They tell you.
Look in the text. What are those specific things? If you don't stop, Jody, it is 8:20. It's probably too late now. You can go, but go check. You've got to pay attention to the clock. You're in 4th grade. What are those descriptive words that they use to help you to know about the places that they played at during their concerts? Look in the book. It tells you in the words.
An outdoor stage under the stars.
Okay, we're an outdoor stage under the stars. All right, what else?
Hollywood Bowl.
Okay, keep reading. Okay, just.
Oh, echoing off cliffs.
What's echoing off cliffs?
The music.
The music echoing off cliffs of red and orange. Is red and orange a descriptive word?
Yes.
I can visualize cliffs of red and orange around me as I'm listening to music. All right, what other descriptive words?
In Philadelphia's convention hall, a city filled with history.
All right, which one's my descriptive words?
City? No.
Keep going.
City filled with history.
City filled with history. That whole city is filled with history. That is the descriptive word. All right, what else do we have? Other than Gabby. Gabby, you're not allowed to answer anymore.
Okay.
Somebody else.
Make the sounds and smells of farms.
What?
Make the sounds and smells of farms.
All right, the sounds and the smells of the farm animals. Is that one of those sensory words?
Yes.
Smell.
Yes.
Can you imagine being at a concert and smelling cows and chickens and poop all around you?
Yep.
You're going to remember that. And then let's go to page 336. All right, we're going to reread paragraphs 49 and 50, paying particularly close attention to an example of figurative language. Here's our question. What example of descriptive and sensory words do the authors use to help you visualize the Beatles' arrival at the Shea Stadium? Let me read that one more time. Rick? Okay.
She just gave me some water.
Okay. Well, I told him to drink water. What example of descriptive and sensory words do the authors use to help you visualize? When you think visualize, think of your own vision. Get your read book out. Arriving at the Shea Stadium. All right, we're looking at paragraphs 49 and 50. It says the Beatles' 1965 American tour opened with the biggest live concert in history so far. A happy crowd of 55,600 fans welcomed them to Shea Stadium in New York. We're on page 336. The band's helicopter landed nearby as they watched thousands of flash bulbs light up the sky. This was surely the toppermost, and yet, with the walls of screams, nothing else could be heard. Not the music, and not even the jets taking off from 2 nearby airports. This struck the Beatles as so ridiculous that they could do nothing but laugh. But they soon stopped joking, worried about the crowd getting out of control. What example of descriptive and sensory language did the author use to help you visualize the Beatles' arrival to Shea Stadium? All right, Nathan, what you got? All right, the fans are screaming so loud. The wall of screams. All right, what other descriptive or sensory language do we find in this paragraph? Somebody other than Nathan or Gabby. I've only read it 4 times. What examples of descriptive and sensory words do the authors use to help you visualize the Beatles' arrival at Shea Stadium? You ain't allowed to say it.
Sensory means.
Gabby and Nathan, go on my desk in my little bucket. There's some suckers. You may go grab one. It should be in a bucket on my desk. See the little bucket up front?
This?
Nope, that's not a bucket. Move those pencils.
Yeah,
All right, what's my other? There's one more. Something you can visualize. Something you can visualize about their arrival.
55,000 spam.
Nope. I mean, yes, you can visualize that, but that was not what the authors used of figurative, descriptive, and sensory language. Christopher, what you got?
Are we visualizing as a crowd?
We're just using the words. What you got, Christopher?
The crowd was out of control that they couldn't hear the music.
Nope.
Flash bulbs lit up the sky.
Flash bulbs lit up the sky. Guys, think of this. If you're standing there and you arrive to something and all of a sudden, all you have is cameras right in front of you just sitting there flashing their lights at you. Isn't that going to be a visualized thing? Yeah, that's a descriptive thing. They were like, oh, like freaking out because it was so much brightness and cheering and loudness that's a descriptive thing. That's the author was trying to get you to visualize that.
You need to cut your hair.
You need to worry about your own hair, not mine. All right, let's go back to the beginning of the Beatles story, and we're going to listen to it fully. And we're going to be listening to the vocabulary words as we go. And then we will do a little bit of science. Hopefully. Let me get my... Remember, when you're going to do your test, you're going to click on this one that says Ed. Always remember that. Okay. We are on Art Everywhere. We are on. Oh, no wonder we're not on Art Everywhere. Yes, we are. I just didn't click the right one. The Beatles were the Fab Five. The Fabulous Five. Why were they the Fabulous Five? There was the four. There were Fabulous Four.
Then they added one.
Okay. Well, what? Why were they?
They lost one of them, so they had to get a new. Did they lose?
They didn't lose one of them.
They just wanted to get one, right?
No. Why were they fabulous? Because they were what?
They sound great.
Okay. Sounded good.
They were funny.
They were funny. They had what? What other characteristics did they have that made them fabulous? They were funny. That's one characteristic. Their hair, their style, where they dressed, their hair, how they talked. I know. They're on.
The Beatles were fab.
It's gonna be,
And
the
they were
subtitles are
fun.
gonna be on.
By Kathleen Crowe and Paul Brewer.
Well, it's gonna be like highlighted.
Illustrated
So,
by Stacy Inners.
all right, you need to be following along. I do one page at a time.
Can you zoom in?
Yes. Well, you have it in front of you.
Music was everywhere in Liverpool, where John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr grew up. Life wasn't easy in that scruffy city in northern England in the 1940s and 50s, but music made things better. John played guitar and harmonica. Paul started out playing trumpet, but traded it for guitar. George had a guitar too, and could play circles around John and Paul. Ringo was the best drummer in Liverpool. From the time they got together as lads until they became superstars, the Fab Four made music, made history, and made people laugh. John, Paul, George, and Ringo always had fun together, even when they were trying to name their band. In 1960, they finally decided to call themselves the Beatles. The name made them laugh, and it stuck.
It says it in there.
In their early days, the Beatles performed for hours and hours in hundreds and hundreds of shows around England and Germany.
Jayana,
It was
sit up.
exhausting and paid next to nothing.
Jayana, sit
Anxious
up.
to have a record of their very own, the Beatles
Tap
were
on the desk
afraid the
beside her.
band was going nowhere. They used silliness to help
Sit
keep
up.
their spirits up. John would shout,
Or you
"Where
can
are we
stand up.
going, lads? To the top, Johnny." "And where is that?" "The toppermost of the poppermost," the others would yell. And they went on with the show. When they got a new producer in 1962, the Beatles tried hard to make a good impression, but it wasn't easy. During a recording session, the producer listed the many things he didn't like about the music, then said politely, "Let me know if there's anything you don't like." A painful silence. George tried to lighten the mood. "Well, for a start, I don't like your tie." The producer laughed, but he still had the Beatles sing their song 17 times in a row. It was midnight before he thought it sounded right. the lads had their first record, Love Me Do, a song Paul had written 4 years earlier when he was 16. Once the bouncy tune got on the radio, people started listening. Months later,
You need to be
the
following
Beatles'
along.
second record, Please Please Me, hit
Can't stay
number
awake,
one
can't
on
stay
the
down.
charts in England. The band began appearing on English TV, singing, joking, shaking their mop-top hair, and having a blast. The songs were fantastic, but the lads themselves were so cool, so funny, so fab, short for fabulous, that reporters started calling them the Fab Four. The first Beatles fan club started with 35 members and grew to 40,000 within a year. Fans sent their heroes love letters, stuffed animals, and their favorite English candy, squishy jelly babies. It was the birth of something new, Beatlemania. No one had seen or heard a band quite like the Beatles before. Fans followed them everywhere. The lads became clever at escaping crowds, although sometimes they needed help. Once, a police officer slung Ringo over his shoulder to get him to safety.
We're on page 326, Jody.
The fans wanted more, so John and Paul wrote songs as fast as they could, meeting over tea and cornflakes. As certain words popped up in hit after hit, they began to consider them lucky. Me, please, love, and especially you. When they wrote She Loves You, Paul's father begged them to change its yeah, yeah, yeah line to a more proper yes, yes, yes. But Paul laughed the idea off with a no, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah was soon heard around the world, and She Loves You became the first Beatles record to sell 1 million copies. The Beatles were no longer playing in small, seedy clubs. They were even invited to perform for a formal audience that included the British royal family. How should they act? Could the Fab Four still be silly in front of royalty? Before Twist and Shout, their final song, John invited the main floor audience to clap along. Then he peered up at the dignified royal family in the box seats. And the rest of you, if you just rattle your jewelry. Everyone giggled, even the Queen Mother. Fame came upon them so quickly that the Beatles still couldn't believe it when they heard themselves on the radio. Whenever a Beatles song was scheduled to air, they would stop whatever they were doing, even driving, to listen to the radio with delight. One night in 1964, their manager burst into their hotel rooms at 3 a.m., waving a telegram from New York in their sleepy faces. Their newest song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, had hit number 1 in America. The lads stayed awake for hours, stunned that Beatlemania had crossed the Atlantic Ocean. But John still had the joke. He liked to call the song, I Want to Hold Your Nose. Dignified. If you are dignified, you act in a way that is formal, calm, and proper. Stunned. If you are stunned, you are shocked or amazed by something. The next month, the Fab Four flew to New York, arriving at John F. Kennedy Airport to the sound of 3,000 fans singing, We love you, Beatles, oh yes we do. 2 days after crossing the Atlantic, they made their first American TV appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. By then, the Beatles had played together more than 1,000 times. Their performance was as polished as could be, and this turned out to be the most watched TV show in history. Polished. A performance that is polished is given with great skill and no mistakes. Even when the massive audience in America made them nervous, the Beatles didn't show it. All the screaming of the fans was music to their ears, a sign that everyone was having a good time. George said, "We like screams, so scream louder and louder." They were now big stars, riding around together in limousines. Yet the Beatles had as much silly fun as they'd had as boys in Liverpool. Paul said, "There were just 4 of us in the back of that car laughing hysterically." Laughter was their way of dealing with their sudden fame. They joked about everything, but they soon regretted joking about their favorite candy. Soft English jelly babies couldn't be bought in America, so fans started stocking up on jelly beans. They threw jelly beans at the stage during concerts as a way to show their love. Ouch! Jelly beans were much harder than squishy jelly babies. John had an idea. Just eat them. Regretted. If you regretted something, you felt sorry about it and wished you hadn't done it. The Beatlemania roller coaster reached dizzying heights during the 1964 tour. Fans screamed in the Hollywood Bowl, an outdoor stage under the stars. In Denver's Red Rocks Amphitheater, the music echoing off cliffs of red and orange. In Philadelphia's Convention Hall, in a city filled with history. At the Indiana State Fair, amid the sound and smell of farm animals. And in 19 more cities from San Francisco to New York. Beatlemania was so intense that the screaming of the fans often drowned out the songs. The lads found it hilarious that the less their music could be heard, the more popular they became, and the more money they were paid. Anything they touched went on sale to fans. Even the hotel sheets they slept on were cut into tiny squares and sold as souvenirs. Excited fans didn't just miss hearing the music. Sometimes people were so starstruck they didn't hear anything the Beatles said at all. John once tested this by telling a distracted restaurant waiter, "I'd like a steak, medium, and 2 elephants came, and a policeman bit my head off, and a cup of tea, please." Reporters interviewed the band constantly.
Ronnie, sit
The
up.
Fab Four often thought the questions were silly, and they loved to give silly answers. Hilarious. If something is hilarious, it is very funny. Every fan has a favorite Beatle. John was often called the smart one. Question: which one are you? John. Eric. Question: some people think your haircuts are un-American. John. Well, it was very observant of them, because we aren't American, actually. Question: how do you find all this business of having screaming girls following you all over the place? George. Well, we feel flattered. John. And flattened. Question: do you go to the barber at all? Paul. Just to keep it trimmed. But sometimes we do it ourselves, you know. John. With our feet. Observant. If you are observant, you see or notice more details than other people. Flattered. If you are flattered by something, it made you feel honored or special. Babyface Paul was the cute Beatle. Question: what is your favorite sport? Paul. Sleeping. Question: is your hair real? Paul. Is yours? Question: you Beatles have conquered 5 continents. What do you want to do next? Paul. Conquer 6. Question: will you ever stop being Beatles? Paul. We are the Beatles. That's what we are. Younger and a bit shyer, George was sometimes the quiet Beatle. Question: what do you call your hairstyle? George. Arthur. Question: what do you do when you're cooped up in a hotel room? George. We ice skate. Question. If one of you stopped being a Beatle, what do you think you'd do? George. I think I'd train elephants in the zoo. Question. What do you do with all the money that you make? George. I'm going to change all mine into cents, fill up a room, and dive in it.
If you have your head down, you need to sit it up.
Nothing rattled Ringo, even rude questions about his large nose. Question. What do you think of Beethoven? Ringo. Great, especially his poems. Question. How many of you are bald and you have to wear those wigs? Ringo. All of us. Question. How did you find America? Ringo. We went to Greenland and made a left turn. The Beatles' 1965 American tour opened with the biggest live concert in history so far. A happy crowd of 55,600 fans welcomed them to Shea Stadium in New York. The band's helicopter landed nearby as they watched thousands of flashbulbs light up the sky. This was surely the toppermost, and yet, with the wall of screams, nothing else could be heard. Not the music, and not even the jets taking off from two nearby airports. This struck the Beatles as so ridiculous that they could do nothing but laugh. But they soon stopped joking, worried about the crowd getting out of control. Later, a reporter asked, "Where would you like to go that you haven't gone yet?" John said, "Home." Four years after Love Me Do, Beatlemania had driven fans wild all over the world. But the Fab Four were forgetting how to laugh. Concerts had bigger problems than jelly beans flying through the air. Now the lads were in danger of being trampled by excited fans. At the same time, as they wrote songs that dug deeper into the meaning of life and love, their music was becoming too complicated to perform live. During their last major concert at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, the fans huddled together on a chilly night. No one quite realized it, but Beatlemania was coming to an end. Trampled. If something is trampled, it is stepped on and damaged or crushed. But it was far from the end of the Beatles and their fun-filled romp. The band retreated to the recording studio, where they could hear the music again and continue to make each other laugh. Nothing was quite the same after Beatlemania. Other British bands became popular, but the witty wordplay of the Fab Four put them in a class of their own. They were trendsetters. Everyone wanted haircuts like theirs, and everyone wanted to dress like they did.
Brianna, you
But
should still be
most
looking at the
important,
book, buddy.
they're considered by many to be the greatest rock and roll band of all time. Constantly adapting their own music in an extraordinary display of styles and subjects, the Beatles changed music forever. John, Paul, George, and Ringo recorded more than 200 songs together. For decades after, their music would inspire people to sing along, dance, love, remember, cry, think, imagine, and laugh.
All right. We're going to stop right there with that.